my name is Grace, and this is my first YouTube video. So I'm gonna do the booktube newbie tag in a separate video, but basically I'm here because I love booktube, I love reading books, I love books in general. I used to work at Barnes & Noble, and I've always had a love for reading, and I found booktube back in like 2015, I think, with Christine Riccio and everyone. And right now my favorite booktubers are Monica Kim, A Clockwork Reader, Read by Zoe, even though she doesn't really make books anymore, Books with Lala, or she doesn't make booktube content anymore. Those are just some of my inspirations. But yeah, I wanted a place where I could talk about books because my real life friends don't really read that much. So here I am. I have an art Instagram where I draw. Sometimes I draw book characters. My account is at gracesue.arts on Instagram. I'll link it below if you're interested. And yeah. So today I just wanted to talk about my favorite books of 2020 to kick off my booktube channel. And I have read about 45 books in 2020. Thanks to quarantine and having a lot of free time after I graduated. I have 9 books on my favorites list, and we're just gonna jump right in. So the first book that I want to talk about I read back in January, and all these books are going to be in chronological order. The first one that I really enjoyed was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Mcquinston, and this is about an alternate version of 2020 because this book came out in 2016, I think. This is an alternate version of 2020 where we have our first female American president, and her son has like a nemesis, a huge rivalry with the Prince of England. And obviously that doesn't look good for PR and politics, so they're forced to become friends, and eventually they fall in love, and it's very dramatic and juicy. I really enjoy books about like royalty and all the drama that comes with it. I have another book coming up later that is also about royalty. So another book that I really enjoyed this year was Scythe by Neal Schusterman. What compelled me to read this book was actually listening to Bookmarked with Zoe, Hannah, and Haley, their Bookmarked club. It's a world in which we have solved, like, the entire world has solved like diseases, war, problems like that. And so like everything is perfect and you can live however long you want until someone gleans you. And gleaning is like being killed by a grim reaper. And so there are specific people that are chosen around the world to glean and keep the population down. And this is about 2 of those people who become apprentices to the Scythes, which are the grim reapers. And they discover that there are people who abuse this power, and they have to try to stop him. It was interesting because it could actually really happen, and it was scary but really cool to imagine our world like that. And then I read The Thunderhead, and right now I'm trying to read The Toll. I took a very long break because, again, this was at the beginning of the year. I just wasn't feeling it. So hopefully I'll like it and finish the series because I do want to see where it like all wraps up. And then the next book I read was actually a memoir, and it was one of the few nonfiction books I read, and this was Know My Name by Chanel Miller, who was the victim in the Brock Turner sexual assault case. And she talks about being Asian American and how that affects her, which was really interesting to me as someone who is Asian American, and also about how the legal system has failed her and other sexual assault victims, because again, Brock Turner, he only got like 3 months, which is barely any time. She talks about the injustices in the world, and I follow her Instagram. She's very active and open and making change, and I just really love her as a person, and this book was excellent. It made me cry. It hits really hard, and I have to give trigger warnings for sexual assault and trauma. So just be aware of that when you go into it. And then another book I read by an Asian author was actually a debut book by Frances Cha, If I Had Your Face. And it follows 4 South Korean women in South Korea. They're just kind of like living their lives. It's kind of a slower book. The beauty standards and what it's like to be a woman in South Korea with such a big focus on beauty and plastic surgery. All the storylines connected at the end, that was really sweet. The next book I wanted to talk about was a romance book called Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I think a lot of people have read this. There's this romance author, and she finds out that her dad was having an affair, and he leaves this beach house after he passes away to her. And she's in kind of like a writer's block, so she decides she will go to this beach house. And her neighbor is actually this boy that she met in grad school, and he writes more of literary fiction books, and so they have disagreements and they bicker because they're in two totally different genres, and they decide they're gonna swap genres and try to write each other's books. And it was very cute because they went on dates and like investigations and things like that to see how each other writes and researches their genre, and it was very cute. It was a lot deeper than you would expect from like a romance book, which is why I enjoyed it, because mostly it's just like fluff, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love fluff, but this one was actually a lot deeper than I expected it to be. I actually reread the Hunger Games trilogy, which was so much fun because I haven't reread that like ever. I read the books as they came out when I was in middle school. Like, now I'm a college graduate. Like, what the heck? But, you know, quarantine had me reminiscing, and I'm a very nostalgic person, so I reread the trilogy, and then I watched the movies afterwards, which I had never seen any of the Mockingjay movies, so I watched those for the first time with my friend over Zoom, and it was so much fun. And I think everyone knows what the Hunger Games is about, so I'm not going to go into it. I flew through like each of the books within like a day or two. The next book I wanted to talk about is my absolute favorite book that I read in 2020, and I loved it so much that I have a physical copy. I usually read my books on my iPad or my computer. Like, I read a lot of ebooks, so I don't have physical copies of a lot of my books. I check them out through Overdrive and Libby, so I only buy books if I really, really want a physical copy, and I really want it, so I got it. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I was compelled to read it because I saw Lynn Trung book haul it. It's a book about a girl who makes a deal with the devil, and she gets to live forever. Like, she's granted immortality, but the catch is that no one ever remembers her. So every time she meets someone and has a conversation with them, the second they turn around, they forget her. And honestly, this is very draining because she can't make any lasting relationships or friendships with anyone. But then she does meet a boy who does remember her, and they fall in love, and it's super cute. I loved Addie LaRue so much that I did a fan art of Addie LaRue on my art Instagram at gracesue.arts, and V.E. Schwab liked it, and I was fangirling. That's my favorite book of 2020. I fell in love with it. The writing was so beautiful. Like, the story's kind of slow, but the writing is what got me. And then I read An Ember in the Ashes, which I've been meaning to for a while because A Clockwork Reader loves that book. I was waiting for the final book to come out so I could binge the whole thing, because I hate waiting for a book in a series that hasn't come out, because I have like the memory of a goldfish, so I don't remember anything that happens, and then I feel compelled to reread it, and it's like an endless vicious cycle. I hate it. So I finally picked up An Ember in the Ashes. It's a fantasy book about this girl who is trying to rescue her brother, and so she becomes a slave to like the headmistress of this boarding school, and the headmistress's son is part of the boarding school, but it's like they're like grown to be like vicious killers, and he knows that it's wrong, and like it's just a story about them trying to like fight the system, basically. I didn't enjoy the second book as much because they were on the run, and I really liked the boarding school aspect of the first one, but I have to say that I'm still really intrigued, and I'm planning to read A Reaper at the Gates very soon. That's one of my top books to read in 2021, so hopefully I'll get to that after I read The Toll. The last book that I read was another royalty book, and it was American Royals by Katharine Mcgee. The story is about if George Washington, when he was offered the presidency, what if he had been offered to be the first American monarch instead? And so basically if America had royalty. and this is so much fun. It was like kind of trashy type read, but I flew through it because it had all the tropes. Oh no, like I was stuck in a cabin and there's only one bed, or oh no, I'm arranged to be married, but I secretly liked this poor man instead. Or oh no, I'm in love with my best friend's brother. Or another character is in love with her sister's arranged marriage boyfriend. But then I kind of spoiled myself by reading the reviews for the second one, and apparently all the love lines, like, they just kind of like drop, and everything's completely different. So I don't think I'm going to be reading the second one, even though I was really excited to. But after reading the reviews, I think I just want to leave the story as it is. So those were all the books that were my favorites of 2020. Hopefully I'll read a lot more good books in 2021. I want to do an anticipated reads of 2021 video next. If you're interested, let me know. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one. Good night. Bye.